Committee, three people of the Finance Subcommittee here. That's good.
Good afternoon. Is everyone in place? Madam Chair, Ms. Jan will not be with us this evening. She has little allergies, and so I'm waiting 3 or 4 minutes. We do have a quorum present, but if anyone shows up, I don't know, I haven't spoken with Ms. Tina.
She did not say that she wasn't coming. She did accept the invite for the meeting. And if she comes in, she could just take her seat during the meeting.
Okay. Well, we do have a quorum present. And I will call to order the April 22nd, 2001 meeting. We will stand for a silent prayer. And after the prayer, Mr. Pope, would you lead us in the pledge? Sure.
Which stands one nation under God.
I want to welcome everyone to the Protect the City Committee meeting. As Vice Chair of the Protect the City Committee, I would like to announce the following. This is a public hearing. To address the committee on any item on this agenda, please fill out the speaker form to submit your information to the clerk prior to the call of the agenda item, or you will not be given the opportunity to speak. Staff assistance is available if needed. Items for submission to the committee should be handled to Council Clerk Mrs. Veronica L. Williams, seated to my left. When addressing the committee, state your name and title for the official record. The 3-minute rule will be in effect. No debating or confrontational statements will be allowed. The front row to my left is for media only. Food and drinks are not allowed in the auditorium, and please silence all phones and electronic devices. First agenda item, determining rules, procedures, and parameters of work of Finance Committee, Subcommittee. I would like to state first that after hearing the speakers that we had on last meeting, it came to our attention that through the different administrations since it has come to my attention that during the It has come to my attention and the attention of the committee that since the inception of consolidation, different methods of figuring the budget has been in place. Each administration has had their own idea of how the budget should be handled. One of them were through the population, and now the previous administration is the non-dedicated funds. I would like to submit before the committee that we focus on the non-dedicated funds allocation method of figuring out the budget. I would also like to request that we limit our focus to non-dedicated funds. That's my request. I will now open the floor for other members to submit. Keep in mind that afterwards we will vote. Any speakers? Any thoughts, ideas? Mr. Pope, you have the floor.
What is your reasoning, if you would, please, on why, because I'm not, this is like a curveball. Why do you want to focus on strictly non-dedicated funds?
My idea is that with the non-dedicated funds, it was mentioned on last meeting that the millage for public works is dedicated strictly to the unincorporated areas. And these are non-dedicated funds. I think where our problem is in the unincorporated areas, that city monies are being spent.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The problem, and I see the logic. The problem is dedicated funds are just that. They're dedicated. You can't take the drainage millage and spend it somewhere else. So you're basically talking about general alimony in both the city and the parish. And Pat or Veronica or Joseph, correct me if I'm wrong, and then the sales tax money, both from the city and the parish, or that are, paid when you're in unincorporated parish, pay the parish penny. In the city of Lafayette, you pay the 2-cent sales tax. So, am I overlooking anything as far as property millages? If
it is my understanding that Ms. Toop said at the last meeting that those non-dedicated funds were gone specifically for that reason, and the rest of the budget was taken care of. At this point, there was a request in writing through the city clerk that I asked for dollar amounts, which I never got. So I think that if we examine the allocation method through the non-dedicated funds, we can come up with what is really going on with taxes that's being spent outside of the city, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking out loud, and I'm sure that Roddy and Bill down there are having their own thoughts, that as we go along as a subcommittee and explore one area, a lot of times, the domino effect kicks in and one thing leads to another. So I think your proposal is a sound one, that we focus on those, and we may find something that maybe we want to bring back to the committee and say, in our endeavor, we found A, B, and C for consideration. But as thinking out loud, and I've got my millage sheet here. Let me just scan through it real quick. Maybe somebody else has some thoughts as we go along. I can tell you this, that a millage that everybody in Lafayette Parish pays is the courthouse and jail millage. It's woefully inadequate. and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, it is broke right now, flat out broke, because the jail takes the majority of that millage, and it's built on a tax, a property tax from 1960, and the courthouse was also built in 1960, and some have said that that courthouse is worn out. I'm not an architect nor an engineer, so I'll leave that for others to say, but the bottom line is that millage is woefully inadequate. It's not been raised since 1960, so we're going on 60 years from a 1960 tax and trying to survive. And everybody pays that, and I don't know if the city kicks in money, but I know right now that they're putting money in that Buchanan parking garage. Josh Guillory, Mayor Guillory gave, if I remember correctly, $2 million to the sheriff. But remember, the sheriff has a lawsuit hanging over our head saying you are mandated to pay our expenses. So that's just kind of background. But every year, 70 to 80% of that courthouse and jail millage goes to the jail.
Mr. Pope, let's stay focused. Would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
No. I'm just making a comment. So
we'll take the background information as we move along, but we're here this afternoon to decide the parameters and focus of the committee.
I understand. I'll let others comment as I scan this list.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, my comment would be, it sounds like there may be just some issue as to terminology, and I would ask you, are you referring to what was discussed at the last meeting regarding the, I think it was about $20 million that is for better or worse, kind of fungible, that is every year is put into that allocation formula, the 3 to 5% of the budget that Lori mentioned? Is that what you wanted to focus on, as opposed to?
No, what I'm asking to focus on is the non-dedicated funds, the allocation method, how it works.
Okay.
And I think comparing things, we should stay away from previous administrations and focus on this present administration. And the reason why I say that is because the allocation method that is used is the non-dedicated funds. Before it was population. And each administration, again, had their own way of allocating the budget. If we go back to the inception in 1996, well, then we will certainly get lost because we have nothing to compare. So my idea is let's focus on what is in place at present, and reading through the budget, the non-dedicated funds, which reflects public works in the unincorporated areas. I think that's where the problem is.
I'm sorry. Repeat that, because it didn't register. The last thing you said. The focus of the non-dedicated funds is public works? Public
work activities going on in the unincorporated areas. I think that's the cry of the taxpayers in the city of Lafayette.
Okay. Go. I didn't mean to interrupt, Stuart. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll conclude my remarks. I think you're referring to and this is just so I'm clear, in the allocation table where the funds are referred to as where the annotation, the number that is given to that particular allocation, and you go down and you look at the key and it says non-allocated sales tax, ad valorem, property taxes.
Correct.
That's what you want to focus on. Okay.
Correct.
You know, I don't have a strong opinion personally about the parameters of the committee. I think the subcommittee, I think it should be tailored to the task at hand, and in light of the fact that we have a short time frame and all have other things going on in our lives, that needs to be taken into account, and we need to focus on the most important things. I don't want personally to dictate what y'all look at. I'll defer to the members of the committee on that. I do agree with Mark on the courthouse and jail millage on 100%, or the courthouse complex millage, because they're not even supposed to pay for the jail. But I think that is really outside of the scope of what we're doing here as a committee, because that is a parish tax that is paid out of parish funds without, I mean, it doesn't really come into play with respect to the city. So those are my thoughts, and I'll let y'all continue discussing. And
thank you, Stuart. Roddy, Bergeron.
Thank you, sir. Just my opinion. I really don't want to give the Finance Committee a ton of work, but one of the things that has kind of stuck with me was when we talk about non-dedicated funds. There are dedicated funds that go to services that are used outside the city. Let's talk about the one of the ones that came up recently is, we're talking about rededicating a fire tax to pay for the fire services in your unincorporated area. The city pays 100% of the cost of the fire services, but those services are used outside the city. Part of that is dedicated funds, not the whole thing. Some of the funds that go to the to pay for the city fire department comes out of general fund money, unallocated money. So just think about that too. Like, what dedicated funds too do we have that are used for services that also can be used outside the city? I don't think it's not all general fund money. There's a good bit of it that goes to the fire service. I forgot how much it is, but just keep that in mind too. There are some services that are paid out of dedicated tax funds. Just my opinion. Second thing I'd like the Finance Committee to kind of look into, when we're talking about the breakdown of the funds, so we say, okay, well, it's 80-20 is the allocation formula, but then we were told that, well, it's not 80-20 down the board, right? We've looked at the millage allocations or the allocations, and sometimes it's 60-40, 100% 0, 0, 100. What's the reasoning behind that? We were told that we do what makes sense, but it'd be good to have some logic behind why we do that or why we cut it those certain ways. I don't think we ever really totally explained why we cut those sometimes 100-0. I mean, we went through a few examples, but we started bringing up labor and a few other things that we don't really have a hard number on or a hard why we do it. I'd like to see if the Finance Committee could explore that a little bit more and start getting some reasoning behind some of those allocation numbers where we said, well, we got to do what makes sense. And I understand that. We got to do it. Some things we don't always have to split 80-20, but if we don't split it 80-20, why is that? Like, why we don't split it down the board 80-20? I feel like there's still I feel like we understand why, but it's still a little foggy, I guess, to me. And I don't know if anybody else had that same issue either, but that's just my thoughts on this, on some of the things to be looking for, and some kind of a framework or parameters is kind of start breaking down some of those allocation numbers. Thanks.
Mr. Bergeron, would you like to put that in the form of a motion? Keep in mind that we will be voting which way the committee goes, the subcommittee.
I'm muted. Can you make my mic?
Your thoughts, if you could, I'll give you a chance to formulate it.
All right. Request to speak? Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'd like to put it up for a motion to say let's the Finance Committee start asking or finding out reasons why that allocation formula, the different allocation formulas are cut that way if they're not 80-20.
Okay. Mr. Pope, would you like to put your thoughts into a motion to be voted on, or whether?
I'd like to elaborate on both what Stuart and Roddy just said. I think that limiting it to the undedicated is a bit of a mistake, because Mr. Hughes told us that the drainage millage goes to, quote, the parish, and the parish is doing the drainage millage. That is, and that's one of their primary duties. So I think to get complete information so all 7 committee members understand as best as possible how money is spent know, allocation is certainly important, but my understanding was the parish is taking the money, the parish government, parish versus city, and they're doing the drainage work. So I assume a lot of the salaries of those people who are equipment operators and drainage maintenance foremen, those type of titles are paid for with that parish millage. So I think, even though you've got a good thought, I think that for all committee members to understand as best as possible how this system works, we may need to explore some of those avenues a little more. And as far as the fire millage, Roddy, I'm not 100% sure. It seems like we're breaking up that health millage some more, and we're going to give money to fire protection in the parish. So I would like to kind of explore that. I'm not sure if we vote on that in October with these 6 renewals, with these property millages, but I think you've got a good point in that the main focus would be the undedicated monies, but I think it's been said in kind of our interaction already that the money, the undedicated money is used by the parish. Well, some, but it's also dedicated money that goes to operate the parish side. And I'd like to get a better handle on it. I think you, me, and Bill, as the subcommittee, could explore that just for a little more clarity on the board, and then it would unfold for us, and we could bring that information back to the whole committee and help them achieve clarity and understand it a little bit better.
Okay.
I agree with you that the main focus is that undedicated money, which is, let's be specific, it's general alimony money for both the city and the parish, and it's sales tax money. And I think that's the extent of undedicated money.
Would you like to put that in a motion? Or would you like to
I can,
amend my motion or Stuart's so that we have something to vote on?
well, Roddy
Okay.
kind of had one in that he said, correct me if I'm wrong, that you would choose not to limit the role of the Finance Subcommittee. Did you say that, or did Stuart say that?
Not to just undedicated funds. I'd like to explore dedicated funds too, because I'm more focused on, not so much on which services are being paid for, but where those services are being used at more.
Do you choose, would you like to make the motion, because you were the first one to?
He has the motion.
Okay, yeah, I motion that the Finance Subcommittee focus on both dedicated and undedicated funds in their parameters of what they're looking for.
In the parameters of the non-dedicated funds,
Dedicated, well,
the allocation method.
How about the allocation yet made? So we're taking all motions off the floor because a lot of them didn't have seconds anyway.
Okay.
So we could start with your motion, and you made a motion for the subcommittee to focus on dedicated and undedicated funds, but do you want to include looking at the allocation schedules as well?
correct, yes.
Okay. And I would need a second to that.
A second.
That was Mark Pope.
Mark Pope, it has been moved and second.
And we would need a vote and, we'll call the roll.
Okay, but before we vote, could we hear from Mr. Leyendecker?
Sure, yeah.
All right. One. I'm good?
Okay, hit you.
Yes, okay. I support Roddy's thought pattern. I also support your thought pattern. I just want to make sure that by any kind of vote, we're not excluding anything that might ultimately affect our mission, which is to focus on the city of Lafayette. So as long as everybody up here is good with that we're not excluding anything that might be important, then I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Leyendecker.
more time, repeat what's on the table.
Roddy Bergeron, motions, second by Mark Pope, that the subcommittee would focus on dedicated and undedicated funds and look at the allocation schedules as well.
Okay, I would move to make an amendment to that the dedicated and undedicated funds, specifically looking at how those funds are spent with respect to the city, and kind of to piggyback off what Bill said in terms of not getting too far afield of you know, the real question, which is where's the city money going? So I'll make that motion.
Well, what we can do is, do you accept that, Roddy, what he said? And it would be that the subcommittee focus on dedicated and undedicated funds and how those funds are spent with respect to the city, and to look at allocation schedule, specifically its impact on city funds.
Yeah, we want to keep it city specific.
Okay.
Yes.
Does that respond to your Stuart? Okay, so he accepts it. Mark Pope, you're the second. Do you accept that? Okay. Then we'll go with that, the revised motion.
Any more comments? Thoughts? Ms. Veronica?
And now that you've heard the motion, if there are any speakers, if you want to speak to the motion, because they just made the motion, you didn't know what it would be. So now that you've heard it, if you would like to speak to it, you're welcome to do so. You want to speak? Okay. So we will call the vote if there are no other comments on that motion.
Mr. Pope?
We're voting.
Yes. Mr. Breaux?
Yes.
Mr. Catalon?
Yes.
Mr. Leyendecker?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We will move along to the next agenda item.
Okay.
Stuart?
Before we move on, I mean, the agenda item, I believe, calls for rules, procedures, parameters of work. I'm not interested in the rules, except I would recommend that everything y'all do be in the APA format, double spaced. No. I'm curious as to what the committee, when it plans, what it plans to return, and what is the time frame for returning that. I think that it's important, given that, you know, we have a maximum of 6 months as a committee, and our current schedule has us ending before then, that there be, you know, kind of a schedule as to what the committee is going to produce.
Any thoughts on what Mr. Stuart said?
And I don't mean to say that there's a hard deadline that is established by. I don't mean to suggest that there should be a motion to say, well, the committee's going to return something on such and such a day. I just think that should be, and it may be not discussed today, but that should be something that we think about and talk about very soon, because time is a wasting.
The time frame as a whole is 3 months for the committee? 6 months. I think that perhaps we could, with 3 meetings.
I think it's 6 months or sooner, Tag.
Okay.
They would prefer,
Well, I'm
I think
saying
the
on the-
council would prefer if we completed before 6. And when I questioned it early on in meetings, I wasn't saying, oh, no, we're going to need 6, 7, 8 months. No, I was just saying that possibly our tentative agenda was 7 meetings. And I just made the comment that I thought that was a little ambitious. If we can complete before 6 months, great. But if I can continue to comment, I think what we've talked about here today, we're all struggling to understand the system. I know the system a little bit. I worked in it for a number of years. Do I know everything? No, of course not. So I think one thing where we can start, and you, with the subcommittee being myself, Dag Catalon, and Bill Leyendecker, we can get together and we can start on that focus with the drainage money. Where does the millage money, which is dedicated, how is that spent? That whatever the dollar figure is, how is it spent? How is it spent in the city? How is it spent in the parish? I think that's a starting point, and then we can get together, and then from meetings as topics come up, you know, we're kind of an informal committee. Maybe it could be suggested to us as the Finance Committee that we explore another topic such as that. But I think that we start with the whole drainage situation. I'm looking, drainage district, $7.6 million. These are 2018 figures. How is that $7.6 million spent?
That's a start.
And with city and within the city, within, I guess you'd say, the city government, or through the city council and through the parish council. I think that's a good starting point.
Now, do we verify that with work orders?
We're going to have to.
From Public Works?
I can't answer. We're going to have to go to the expert. I would think work orders, yes, is a part of it. Is probably a big part of it. But that's what we'll have to explore and find out as a subcommittee.
Let me ask Ms. Veronica, on the subcommittee meetings, are we confined to the space of City Hall? Or where should those meetings take place?
It should take place at a public location so the public can attend, because you should, because it was appointed by the city council, a governing body, it's subject to open meetings laws. So, and I talked to legal about it, so we would have to post an agenda, but you do not have to meet here. You can meet at any library or one of the recreation centers, or, you know, there are several locations that you can meet at, just not probably at someone's home.
Yeah, because I was going to suggest the library. They have rooms where we could go and reserve, and there's blackboards in the room.
Right.
And it's large enough for the three of us. And it's the front wall is glass, so people coming in and out can see what we're doing.
I understand what you're saying. I kind of like this because I think it's central and everybody knows where City Hall is, 715, what is it, East, West University? I can never.
West University.
West University.
And it would be in a large conference room.
This conference room right here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of my input. It's certainly big enough. We can do our social distancing, and the public knows where this is. We don't have to be in here. It doesn't have to be recorded, does it, Veronica? We could sit at the table and have our.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be recorded.
Okay.
I think the problem with that, Mark, is that there are other meetings we would have to get on an agenda.
Well, same with the library. Well, look, path of least resistance.
With the library, those rooms are vacant most of the time.
How about path of least resistance? I have no problem with that. Which library are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about the south side, or we go downtown. I think south side would be better.
If you're thinking more
What you
centrally
think, Bill?
located, the downtown library is right down the street from here. So if you're thinking City Hall is centrally located, the downtown library is right there down the street.
Would be a better location.
More centrally located,
Yeah.
whereas,
Okay.
you know, I mean, of course, south side is,
And
What's
it's
your
up to
thought,
you
Bill?
guys, though, wherever you want to have it.
Any location that's convenient for both of you is good for me.
yeah.
You know,
Well,
just
and look, you may be right. I'm certainly not trying to be confrontational, but Veronica, how often is that big conference room used?
It's used from time to time because they have bid openings in there
Yeah.
and they have other meetings, but I mean, we'll just have to see. Again, this could be discussed off the record. You don't have to determine right now where a location is, but maybe just take away that maybe somewhere that's more centrally located, because it's the public too would have the option to attend.
Okay.
Okay, so there's no problem with texting or calling my two subcommittee members,
And we agree on, like, over the phone or through a text message, where it's going to be, and then we tell you.
Right.
And you
Just
go with it.
It's a correct. A time, you could discuss a time, a location, that's fine.
Okay, well, that's fine with me, you know?
And an agenda item,
Yeah.
you know.
And I guess as chair, I'll go ahead and look, I've no problem with the downtown library. If my two colleagues are in agreement with that, and we can talk when we're done here. We don't have to sit it and make it part of the formal meeting when you guys want to get together. And I'll check with downtown and if a day we agree upon happens to be taken, maybe I can check with Veronica, is the big conference room. So maybe if one's taken, we can go to the other place, and we'll kind of use those as the two main venues.
Okay,
Yep,
sounds good, Bill?
that's good.
That works for you? And we're going to stick to 6 month. I was hoping we could do this in a series of,
Or sooner.
say, 3 months. Bill, what you think?
Well, I think the duration of time is going to be pretty much dependent on how, you know, how much information there is. So certainly, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, taking as long as necessary.
Okay.
That's just me.
But within the 6 month period?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if you guys would like to meet on well, it wouldn't be the same week, maybe every other week or whatnot, you know, and see what you come up with. But, I mean, that doesn't have to be discussed now. You guys could determine how often.
I think, Veronica, in between meetings, so that when we have our regular scheduled meetings, we have something to report.
Gotcha.
Mark?
I'm in agreement.
Bill?
sir.
Okay. Moving on, let's discuss future guest speakers, topics for the committee meetings to obtain needed information for the, well, first of all, let's discuss future guests. I would like to get a response from the Lafayette Parish School Board tax administration on the dollar amount of money that they collect and submit to the city of Lafayette. I would like to see that happen. Bill?
That's fine with me.
That way we would have an input of all finances coming in, nobody left out at a later date. Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Well, I mean, while we're at it, you say city, I agreed, but parish, city sales tax as well. What did I just say? Parish, city sales tax?
I think
they can give us the complete rundown.
I think the parish has already responded. I don't think we'll get any more from Mr. Como.
Well, does the sales tax goes through the school board, correct?
Pamela? Yes, whenever the school board is the collector of sales tax. Whenever they collect sales tax, they collect it for everyone, every municipality. And if they are collecting any taxes in the unincorporated area, they remit it as well. So whenever what you're asking for, it will include all the municipalities and also the unincorporated areas. So everything would be, one-stop stop.
Okay.
One-stop shop, yeah.
Do we have time to put that on the upcoming agenda?
You just have to contact the school board and see if they're available for the next meeting, which is what, Tuesday coming?
Tuesday.
Be probably
That's
like
kind of short notice.
It's kind of short, but there's a chance they normally have all the records. It's just somebody have the time to come, which I don't think they will be. I can't speak for them, but we can just give them a call and see, and if not, they can come on the for sure they can make you guys a subcommittee report, but I think it would be good for all the committee to hear from them. Yeah, that's what you're discussing now.
Yeah.
You are discussing for the entire,
the entire committee.
Yeah. So.
And we do get a bottom line month to month, and even comparing to the previous fiscal year as to how much we collect on the city side and on the parish side. We have those reports available, and we could send that to you.
And I think it would be good if you can get them, that way they can tell you guys the process, how it is coming in, how they go by receiving the monies, and then how they go by and remit it to the school board each, because you have to realize some municipalities, let's say for instance like in Dusson, they collect some money from City-Parish as well. And you have in the Youngsville area, you may collect some money from St. Martinville as well, because you have some of these outlying communities that also goes into, you take things like Latrion, it's in the city of Lafayette, but they also have Broussard and St. Martin Parish. So, I think you guys might need to know how all this is operated too, how the funds are coming in.
Okay.
But again, it's up to the committee. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
I think you have both Roddy and
Stuart?
Roddy.
Okay. Roddy?
Yep, thank you, sir. Yeah, I agree. We definitely need to get the school board out here and explain to us the sales tax breakdown, how it's collected, what it's looked like over the last 20, 30 years. The city's brought in, the parish has brought in. I think gives us a good idea of what's happened since consolidation's happened. And if we can go back further, that'd be great too, to see like what it looked like before consolidation, because I'd like to get an idea of that. So definitely agree with y'all on that one. I'd also like to hear from the consultants who do the allocation formula and have them come present and see and give us their side of like how do they come to that? What's the formula? What's their basis? What's all the different ones that they can offer? I'd just like to hear from them if it's possible. If we can get the consult, I mean, we may not give it on a short time, but it'd be good to come hear from them, do a presentation, give us access to them.
We would have to see, because I think they're like, and I'm just saying a state, maybe in New York or somewhere, and we would have to fly them in or whatnot. But maybe we can do a phone.
Yeah, if they can send a presentation or something too, and they can walk through it over the phone, that'd be great too. They don't have to fly out here. I mean, they definitely don't have to.
And I don't know where they are, but they're not in Lafayette or Louisiana.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from them, and if we could get, I don't know if it's available to us, but a breakdown of all the allocation formulas and their methods since, I'd say, 92? I'd like to see a few years before consolidation. I'm sorry, it wouldn't make sense to have the breakdown. So anyways, no, since consolidation, what the allocation formula has been. Sorry. But I'd like to see that too, not as a guest speaker, but just as data presented to us. Thank you.
What about George LUS? Could he, he's already spoken to us, but could he, in the form of his profession as an auditor, he is an auditor.
Could we hear from the current auditor of the? Let's get a different perspective from the current auditor. Who does the current audit now?
It's Colder, but Burton Colder, yes. Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should hear from someone from Colder Shelvin about what's the current audit for them, like what it looks like. The George Lewis used to do it when he was, I think it was Broussard, Crochet, Lewis, and Breaux. But now it's Colder Shelvin. It'd be good to hear a different perspective from someone. Colder Shelvin, maybe to give their opinion, or to come tell us what they're seeing.
Mr. Breaux?
Yeah, I think that if we can get something from the auditors, I mean, if perhaps the city could fly us up to New York to meet with them.
The committee, huh?
Right.
I guess you got my response on that.
I think that it'd be helpful if we can do something remotely, yeah, and even if they could provide some materials, but it'd be nice to hear from them. I think the auditor, current auditor, is also would be a good person to hear from. I personally don't see the value in hearing from the school board. I mean, they collect taxes and tell us how much they collect, and that's pretty much it, and their numbers are all audited and accounted for. I don't know what we'll glean from, a lengthy presentation on the sales taxes.
Well, from the school board, we get a dollar amount of what's coming in.
But
And we can get you that.
Right.
We'll get you a chart. We get a chart monthly. The school board sends us the amount of what we collected per month in the city and per month in the parish. So we do have those charts available, and we'll send that. Now, we could, if you guys would like to, we could still have them here. But I know I've heard several times that you guys have asked just for the bottom line, what are we collecting? And we have those numbers.
Well, I think it would be informative to have them here. And let me go further to say that I think as we get new speakers, we don't have them like 2-3 speakers at the same meeting, maybe one speaker per meeting. Because what we've experienced in the past is 2.5, 3 hours, maybe 4-hour meetings. And I think if Madam Chair was here, she would agree with me. I think we need to limit the time that we meet. And multiple speakers in one
And these
meeting
are suggestions.
is just too much.
And what we can do, we're not voting on any of these suggestions. You could continue to just provide suggestions. The chair would then maybe even send them to you guys. And for the majority, which of these do you want to hear from? What do you think? And whatever the majority is, she'll start from there. But these could be suggested topics. It's not like, of course, today we'll be voting on any topics. It's just suggestions and guest speakers.
Okay, Stuart.
Yeah, as for other guest speakers, I think that it would be helpful for the committee. I'm looking particularly at growing burden on city taxpayer being the April 27th meeting. I know that this is tentative and subject to change, but I'd be interested to hear from current city council members and past city-parish council members, and that could be done. Perhaps you could invite 3 individuals and have them speak as part of a panel, and set a time frame where you have an hour of the discussion, and then we're going to end so that it doesn't drag on too long. But I think we'd be going well into next year if we had one council member come every meeting. So I think it'd be informative for the committee to get the opinions of the council members, past and present, on what they see as the burden on the Lafayette taxpayer.
I think our time was consumed on questions after each speaker. I think that's where the problem came in at.
Well, I think one thing that, if you did it as a panel, the chair could moderate that panel and ask a series of questions that could be provided to the council members in advance so they have time to prepare and ask each person a question, and we hold all of the questions until the end, recognizing and everybody be understand that this is limited time, and any individual council member or any individual committee member can follow up with a council member at a later date to discuss any particular issue further. So
now, what would these former council members be speaking on? What would be their topics? The former council members. We talking about 9 people?
No, I don't think you invite 9 people. I'm saying you pick 1 or 2, have them come in and address the issue of, again, what is on the agenda, growing burden on the city taxpayer. I assume that they all have some opinion as to the state of the city and its tax burden.
And just as an FYI, Councilmember Patrick Lewis did extend an invite to his city colleagues who appointed you guys to come and speak. So we do have a couple, and so if you that indicated they would like to address the panel, I mean the committee. So we do have, I do have written, down that 2 council members at some point would like to come and address you guys, and maybe in what Stuart is saying, they could come. Because they're already scheduled at some point to come and speak.
Okay. Stuart? Mr. Pope?
I think that, who suggested the audit? We kind of went back and forth on the auditors. I think George Lewis was.
I suggested George Lewis.
Yes, sir. And he's retired. He's been retired for quite a number of years. And so I agree that our current auditor would be most useful and most important, because remember, as we look for information, I saw a lot of things, sat through a lot of budget meetings and a lot of budget hearings. I want to see proof where city money was spent in the parish. A budget is a plan. An auditor goes in and tells you what really happened. So looking strictly at the budget, other than cost allocation, is only going to be so useful. So I think that the auditor is far more important. I understand if other folks want to have the folks from the school board come in and talk about sales taxes. I think we're going to get kind of a description of how they function and how taxes are submitted. And taxes fluctuate. They're not the same year to year. So I kind of agree with Stuart. I don't know how useful an exercise that will be, but I think that hearing from our current auditor is going to be far more important, because again, looking at a 400-page budget, which is a plan, is one thing, and plus make your head spin. But hearing from the auditor, who is telling us about reality and what happened, not what the plan was, that's going to be, I think, most important. So I'd like to focus first on having the auditor, scheduling the auditor whenever possible, the auditor that we use for LCG.
Well,
So,
I think everything should be verified. You were saying earlier you want proof. I agree with you on that. That's the reason why I asked for work orders for drainage roads and bridges out in the unincorporated area.
Right. Well, we'll have to take what the administration can offer up.
Well,
I mean,
if there are work orders, I've heard various City-Parish executives say that they're running the city like if it was a business. Well, business people have work orders, they keep records.
True, but and all this is true. But we are a $600 million business, and when you start throwing in government accounting, it gets a bit more complicated. I'm not saying it can't be done.
Well,
I'm just saying
we're
that
talking about drainage roads and bridges out in the unincorporated area. That's what we're talking about.
Okay. So I don't
with
know.
the undedicated funds, that's
Right.
That's a focus.
Well, I'd like to make a motion of that as a priority, that we try to schedule the auditor first to come talk to our committee, because I think so. I'm making a motion that we try to get our, if possible, if we're meeting this coming Tuesday, what is that, the 27th?
So you're talking about the whole committee? All
Yes.
7 of us,
Yes,
instead of the subcommittee.
Right, because I think we're on the topic of future topics and guest speakers.
Yes, we are.
And so I'm making a motion that we try to schedule the City-Parish auditor before the sales tax, and if the sales tax, folks at the school board, sales tax collector is what I'm trying to say.
How do other members of the committee feel about that? Bill?
First of all, we have to
first of all, we have to check on the availability of the auditor to see if he can show up or not. And then certainly if the auditor can come next Tuesday, is that going to be enough time for all of us to formulate some questions as to, what we're going to ask him? And then, we have two members that are not here today. Are they going to be able to have time to formulate their questions? So I guess my suggestion might be to wait until Tuesday, and hopefully we have these two back, and then we decide, okay, which ones do we want? Do we want the auditor first? That'll give us more time to schedule an auditor to come, to give us more time to ask questions, and it just might be a more complete kind of committee request. So that would be my suggestion.
And that's why I
Ms.
said
Pope,
not to make no confirmations as to what agenda items, because you don't know who's available. And again, you have two committee members who are unable to attend today. I think the goal was to just suggest and make recommendations on a guest speaker and topics. And then you guys could look at it from there. Once you have it all, when you're looking at it all, then in comparison with dates and upcoming meetings, and like Mr. Leyendecker said, maybe to allow time to get him scheduled, plus to submit your questions and for him to present responses to the questions as well. So my suggestion, again, is just to submit guest speaker and topic suggestions. And then you guys could determine from there where to go.
Okay.
But there is a motion on the floor, and there's no second at this time. So I don't know if you want to withdraw your motion, Mark, or move forward with it.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
wait till the full committee's
He withdrew his motion.
I would like to make a suggestion as well, when time allows. I can speak now?
Yeah.
Okay. I think what we need to, you guys need to do is also set a time limit. When someone comes, like for instance, the auditor. Now that's a very delicate situation right there. You need time to absorb what they're going to say, because the auditor have a lot of information that you guys will need to hear. And then he has to, the auditor firm have to compile all this report for you guys. So like Mr. Bill is saying, it'll take them some time to get all this information gathered so they can give you all what you guys are looking for. Then y'all should have questions for the auditor firm so they can give you all the correct knowledge that you guys are looking for. But someone like that, I would think, my personal opinion, I would prefer having them be the speakers, because y'all gonna have a lot of questions. Instead of have someone else there that's a guest speaker, because he may speak for 30, 45 minutes. Then you might have questions for about 45 minutes. And if you have another speaker, time will just go. So I would think that the auditors should be by themselves. Give them enough time to come by themselves, because there's a lot of information that y'all gonna absorb in a couple hours. So you want to make sure that y'all have enough time. But the other guest speakers, say for instance, if y'all do invite the school board, give them 15, 20 minutes. They should be able to give you all the information they need in 15, 20 minutes, and then y'all should maybe have questions for about 5, 10 minutes. So within 30 minutes, they should be finished with their report, if that long. If y'all decide to go with them, or anyone else y'all decide to go with, moving forward with guest speakers, just give them, like council members, we give everyone 3 minutes to talk. Again, that's a different situation. So, and everybody, there's a time clock that Ms. Veronica or Joseph have. So give them 15, 20 minutes, whatever time y'all think y'all need, especially if y'all give them the questions ahead of time. They should come prepared and tell you guys what y'all want to hear. So within 15, 20 minutes, they should be finished with it, but not the auditors. The auditors need time. That's my comment. Thank you.
Bill?
Nope. I agree with Mr. Lewis. And,
Moving on.
Mark is requesting to speak.
Mark?
So, the agenda item that we're on now, number 4, concludes with information needed for a compilation of the final report. I think, I'm just thinking for the next time we as a committee meet, I thought this, part of what we were going to do here today was kind of examine those 14 questions in that resolution. Because at some point, especially if we're trying to get done in 6 months or sooner, I see that as our role, that we as a committee are to answer those questions. And I know Stuart, so I'm on target here in that we're looking information needed for the compilation of the final report. I think we have to use those questions in that resolution as a guiding document, and not necessarily go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or A, B, C, D, but those questions should be answered and addressed, and possibly even the next meeting. I know Stuart's in charge of compiling this report. I'd like to get some kind of idea, how is that going to be done? I mean, are we going to be able to submit our individual thoughts toward this? I mean, what is going to be the limit?
Well, I don't think the purpose of this meeting was to discuss the 14 questions.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know, but we're on agenda items for future meetings. And I think at some point, because we may not have a guest speaker for this coming Tuesday, the, 27th? And so I'm suggesting that as an agenda item. When do we start? Because it would be helpful as we look forward, even though we're a ways away from our final product, our final report. But how are we supposed to assimilate this information? With answering those 14 questions in mind?
Yeah. That's the general idea. But, you know, at this point, I don't think, if we do not have a speaker for Tuesday, then we can entertain what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But this afternoon, I think we should move on to the next agenda item. That's the reason why.
Well, I'll bring it up again.
That's the reason why I didn't address it.
It's guest speakers.
Because
the
it's not
agenda
the full
item tag is guest speakers and topics for committee meetings.
And I did write that one down, Mark, just to look at the 14 questions as a suggested topic. So again, we'll list all the suggestions you all made for topics, and then it'll be sent back to you guys.
Excellent.
So that'll be discussed in a future meeting. Thank you. Stuart?
Yeah, I think that we can reserve further discussion until another meeting. But yeah, the writing of the report is hopefully not all me. So obviously everybody, you can't put 7 different stories in the report and publish it, because then you end up with nothing. But as a committee, we decide on how we respond to the questions and what information we're basing that on. And so to me, that's the process. And in that process, everybody has a voice, and the committee as a whole makes the decision. I also think that a lot of this stuff should probably be deferred to Jan as the chair, in terms of setting the schedules and all that, because I think she and probably you have been doing that mostly right now.
Yeah.
So I think that we absolutely need to make a schedule and plan out the rest of our work and as quickly as possible. But I think that is best put off until Jan can be with us.
Well, I'm in agreement with that. If no further comments, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Unfinished business. I think we've already started discussing next meeting discussion items.
Correct.
Is there any other items that anyone would like to add or discuss? Mr. Bergeron?
Yes, for the drafting committee, Stuart, I'd like for us to start meeting soon to come up with a framework, not answering questions, right? Just coming up with what we want the report to look like. That way, when we start answering the questions, we already have that down. So if we could meet, we have to rope Tina in and kind of see her availability, but I'd like to start doing that soon within the next week or two, if possible.
Thank you. Mr. Breaux?
I just wanted to note to the committee that you've received this memorandum that I prepared with some of my thoughts on what was in Mayor President Guillory's administration response, and also some additional thoughts from Mrs. Toop's presentation at our last meeting. I won't go into the details here. My hope in preparing this was that it would spur further conversation, not only among the committee members, and highlight what I think to be some of the important issues that we need to investigate as a committee, but also that this is something that could be returned to the administration, and hopefully we can get some more clarification, because I think there are a lot of things that were said that were either and I get that we're not going to get a treatise, and the Mayor President has lots of things on his plate, but there are some things that I think we are going to need an additional clarity on, and so I think that's something to take up at the next meeting after you've all bored yourself to death with this, reading this, and so just wanted to give you all an explanation of what you received and why.
Okay. Mr. Pope?
At some point, and my question is driven, or my comment is driven by, we're getting a flood of information, an absolute flood of information. Stuart put a lot of time in this. I will read it. I've read everything. And I'll tell you now, one of the documents that was sent to us, chaired by a very smart man, very knowledgeable man, J. Luc LeBlanc. I will make this comment right here, right now. And who confirmed it was Conrad Como. Was basically throwing mud at the wall. That report is full of errors. I commented to Jan. So, if we answer every question that's asked in that report, and if we fact check that report, that's 6 months of work right there. So, having said that, we're getting flooded with information. I read everything 2 and 3 times. I hope all committee members are. Do we set rules and a format for that? Bill, you've come up with a lot of good thoughts and ideas.
No, Mark, I don't think we should. I think that is those people's opinions. How do we check their facts? I'm not sure.
Well, I'd kind of like the whole committee to weigh in on this.
Well,
and I think part of the question is, I don't necessarily think it's unfair to say, is it too much information? Is everybody reading everything? Because if we don't have that, we're not going to have a complete committee, a completely informed committee.
I'm like you, I read everything.
Yeah.
Okay? Some things I don't agree with.
Yeah.
But then I ask for verification.
Sure. But once again, back to my point, I'm making that because I've known Conrad for years, back when he was on the parish council. So I called him and asked him other questions. I'd like to finish, please. I asked him other questions, and I said, Conrad, were you involved in this? He said, yeah, I attended some meetings. He said, I tried to correct some things at first. And that's what I'm saying. My point is simply this, Tag. We're being flooded with information, and some of it is bad information. And that 10-page report is loaded with bad information, a lot of speculation, and a lot of questions that are posed.
Well, Mark, frankly speaking, think the chief financial officer gave us some bad information, but we're not here to discuss that or debate that. Not at this time. Let's
It's
wait.
kind of in line with what Stuart was saying.
Let's wait till Jane gets back.
We can.
And we'll talk about that. That's not what we're meeting for this afternoon.
I think we're on topic. Future topics. I'd like to make that point because people are reading it, and whether it needs to be Conrad Como that comes before us again and says, yes, basically what you're looking at there is a narrative. If somebody said something, it was put on paper. And I can point out multiple errors in there, inaccuracies.
Mark,
If people don't have that information pointed out to them, then we're getting bad information. And so, again, back to the focus. We don't limit the information. If somebody has thoughts and they want to write an essay, they can write an essay and turn it over to the committee members.
Mark, not in this meeting. Like I said, my thoughts on different speakers that has come before us, I'm not really in line with what they said, okay? But if we spend our time nitpicking everything somebody says or writing a report, we'll be sitting here next year at this time.
You're correct.
That's not the purpose of the committee. Sure, we'll get bad information, if you will. We'll get good information. We are all 7 intelligent people. We can sort that out amongst ourselves.
Okay. I'd like to bring it up again because I think things like that need to be pointed out. If nobody points it out, nobody knows, and they take it as fact.
Well,
as I started with, Jerry-Luc Lebon is a very smart person with a lot of experience in government, and you would assume that 10-page report was bulletproof.
Mark,
it's Swiss cheese.
Mark, at this point, I think you're out of order. Let's move on. We're not here to discuss that.
We can move on. Unfinished business, next meeting. It's a topic we're on.
Any unfinished business? Comments from the public?
There are no comments.
No comments. Well, if there are no comments.
Mr. Chair, I didn't know, Mr. Leyendecker, you provided, do you want to comment on that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Leyendecker?
That's fine.
Pardon me.
Okay, there you go.
I'm good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I've handed out some things at previous meetings, and these are just, thoughts that I come up with. I write them down, and I just wanted them to, to let everybody know, my thought process. I decided to be on the Protect the City Committee for that fact, to protect the city. So, I guess I'm unashamed to say that everything I think about or look at, any point of view is going to be to protect the city. So those are just my opinions. Those are my questions. I'm just trying to get across to everybody what my thought pattern is. And I decided it'd probably be better if I just give it to you here instead of sending an email so I don't run afoul of any kind of, law. So. And I certainly would hope that if you also decide to put your thoughts down on paper, that you also distribute them to the committee, because I'd love to hear them.
Thank you.
Mr. Breaux?
Yeah, I just, to Mark's point, I think that we have to treat, for instance, if we get, are you referring to the transition committee for the charter amendments?
Yeah, I'm sorry if I wasn't.
Yeah, I think that in cases like that, the information is given to the committee for its consideration, but it's not our task or within our ability to fact check any of that, and it's not in a record per se that is somehow being given some status as far as this committee is concerned. So I think if people give us stuff and it's factually inaccurate, that we just move on. We don't have enough time to sort through everything. I think that, you know, what Bill sends, what I hopefully was able to convey, you know, are directly related to the 14 questions that we're here to answer. I think that the committee on the charter amendment transition is at best tangential, and we should treat it as such. So, I mean, I think that that's how we have to look at it going forward. So, my thoughts.
Let me say, we have two subcommittees, one on the charter, one on budget and finance. That's what our final report will look like. Whatever the Charter Commission, that subcommittee comes up with in their report, that will be submitted to the whole group. Whatever budget and finance come up with, that will be submitted to the whole group, and then we will decide then. It's simple. We don't need to go asking people to prove what they said. Moving along, is there any other comments? If not, I will move for adjournment.
We don't need a motion. You could just adjourn the meeting.
The meeting
I'll
is,
second anyway.
Bill,
I'm good, yes, thank you.
the meeting is adjourned.